US embassies across the Middle East have warned their citizens to be prepared for unforeseen escalation, urging them to be ready to leave the region if the situation intensifies. It comes a day after the US president threatened to hit Iran very hard. On Friday, Donald Trump also said that he was losing faith in talks with Iran, accusing Tehran of lies and misinterpretation. Well, Mike Hanna is following developments from Washington, D.C.
President Trump posted several pictures of fighter aircraft on his social media page, but had no comment what the pictures meant. We simply do not know. President Trump has been at his estate in Bedminster, New Jersey, and unusually a lid was called in the early morning before 10 o'clock, which means that the president will not be leaving that particular location. We did hear from President Trump Friday, in which at a cabinet meeting in Camp David, he said that he will be hitting Iran hard, speaking in the future tense. But we've had no tangible indication that this is in fact going to be the case. The normal indicators, well, for example, the US Air Force Base in the United Kingdom, where its B-1 bombers are based, there's been no reports of any unusual activity there. There are some 20 B-1 bombers at that base in Gloucester. Now, that is all the total number of B-1 aircraft that the US have available at any given moment. There's also been a travel warning from embassies in the Middle East, individual embassies, warning of a possibility of an imminent escalation in the conflict. This, however, is rewording, a reiteration of what the State Department has been putting out on virtually a daily basis in the recent months of this ongoing conflict. So no real indication yet from President Trump or others that an action is going to happen. But we did hear President Trump say at that cabinet meeting that he will be hitting Iran hard. Mike Hanna, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Well, Iran's former foreign minister has warned against what he calls adventurous action by US and Israel. Abbas Araghchi made the comments during separate phone calls with the foreign ministers of Turkey, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. He says that his country is ready to respond to any aggression with decisive and proportionate action. Mahmoud Abdel Wahed has more from the Iranian capital, Tehran.
Iran is stepping up its diplomatic outreach as tensions with the United States remain high. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi held separate phone calls with Pakistan's Army Chief Asim Munir, Turkish Foreign Minister Haqqan Fidan and Saudi Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan, discussing the risks of further escalation. During these calls, Tehran has warned against any US military action, reiterating that it's willing to respond decisively to any attack against its sovereignty or national security. These latest conversations come alongside a strongly worded statement by the Foreign Ministry accusing the United States of violating the ceasefire agreement by ignoring the rules governing navigation in the Strait of Hormuz and also by directing vessels through what Tehran considers an unauthorized route. Tehran also accuses Washington of undermining the ceasefire by using commercial vessels to conceal military movements through the Strait of Hormuz and by imposing new sanctions and a naval blockade and by also launching new airstrikes against Iranian targets. Now, these latest developments come amid growing speculations of a fresh US-Israeli military campaign to target Iranian infrastructure, while Tehran is threatening to expand its retaliation beyond the region. Mahmoud Abdul Wahid, Al Jazeera, Tehran.
Well, Ross Harrison is a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute. He's also the author of Decoding Iran's Foreign Policy, and he joins us live from Washington. Thank you very much for taking time to talk to us. Can I ask you then, what do you think then is Iran's long-term strategy? Do you think it is following the path that they initially laid out?
Well, yes, Hannah. I mean, there is a pattern that we've seen since the beginning of this war, which is that Iran understands that it cannot compete kinetically, militarily, symmetrically with the United States or with Israel. So what it's done is do its best to complicate the battlefield for the United States by escalating horizontally. And that's what we've been seeing over the last number of days is, initially it started with the Gulf Arab states, then it moved to Yemen, it's moved to Iraq, it's moved to Jordan and to Egypt. So that pattern is something that is a pattern that we've seen since the beginning of the war. But I think the other important thing, Hannah, that's important to say is that what Iran is trying to do is to break out of the escalation trap that Donald Trump is in at this moment, because Iran believes that if it stays in, if Donald Trump can determine when the fighting stops and when it starts, then they lose leverage over time. And that's something they're determined at the end of this war to have recreated, which is deterrence, which comes through leverage.
But yes, as you stress, the focus for them is on Donald Trump, but Araghchi has also stressed the country is ready to respond decisively to any aggression, but that's even within the region. So what do you think it means for Iran's neighbours?
Well, I think it means the potential, if in fact Donald Trump decides to attack energy assets and water plants and energy and infrastructure, civilian infrastructure, I think what it means is the potential for Iran not just to escalate horizontally, which is what I spoke about just a minute ago, horizontally across the region, but also to escalate vertically, which means to step up the attacks not just on American bases, but potentially on civilian targets, infrastructure targets in the Gulf Arab states. I think they would do that reluctantly, but I think if they're backed up against a wall and believe that that's what the Americans are going to do, I think that's what they potentially would do. And I think that's what they've been with Al-Ghashi, Foreign Minister Al-Ghashi, has been basically communicating to his interlocutors over the last day or so.
In terms of negotiating, given that the Iranians, it's both the government and the IRGC are involved, are they aligned? And what impact is this having on negotiations?
I'm sorry, the aligned, you mean the IRGC and?
And the Iranian government. Are they all speaking?
Oh, yeah, I think that, yes. Yeah, see, and under the previous supreme leader, under Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was killed the first day of the war, the system was much more of a consensual system where you would have the principalists, the hardliners, and then the pragmatists, and Ali Khamenei would be the adjudicator. Right now, what we've seen since the very early days of this war is much more of a consensus-style system. And that does not mean that there aren't divisions in terms of opinions, but the ability to make the decisions is resting with a very core group. And the IRGC basically stated that a few days ago, saying, listen, the negotiations, if they take place, are only taking place under our imprimatur, with our support. So I think right now, everything I can tell from watching inside the Islamic Republic is they've come together in terms of the divisions have basically come together in order to make decision-making streamlined during this crisis.
Well, and you said that when you referred to their backup against the wall, I mean, Iran has been hit both in terms of security and economically. How far or how long are they willing to wait until they move decisively? At what point are they willing to hold back until they will actually negotiate?
Well, I think the issue is, the question is, they've negotiated before, but I think they believe that Donald Trump thinks that just by one more turn of the screwdriver in terms of kinetic force, that the Iranians will capitulate. And the Iranians will not capitulate. So I think in terms of their ability to absorb pain, listen, Hannah, for them, this is an existential crisis. They believe that they have to leave this war having recreated deterrence, because their biggest fear, they certainly don't want escalation, but their biggest fear is that they leave the war and then they've lost deterrence, and then 5 months from now, 6 months from now, the war returns. So they're determined to basically leave this war having incurred a lot of pain, but having also caused a lot of pain and a lot of chaos for the United States. And I think that's their North Star. So how far will they go? I think they're unlikely to capitulate, and I think there's a lot more room for them to go, because they don't have a plan B. So they're gonna go to the mat on this. I think this one. What that means for the region and for the war in the United States at this point is remains to be seen.
Ross Harris and talk just there from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much.